A blood vessel in my eye popped, but I can see fine. I'm going to be okay. It looks worse than it is, so I'm sorry. An OpenAI co-founder said that we could have AGI as soon as 2 years from now. Researchers in the Netherlands came up with an AI-powered sarcasm detector, and I'm so impressed. A project called Camera Buds has been leaked out of Meta's R&D department, and I think it makes a ton of sense, actually. Malik wrote an amazing piece that breaks down how what Steve Jobs did for Apple is what Sam Altman is now doing for OpenAI. MIT invented a physics-informed artificial intelligence to help us find new forms of matter. OpenAI started rolling out the new tables and charts feature and the integration into Google Docs. It's insane. Boeing is now using artificial intelligence to make digital twins of the airplanes, to fix the problems. A Reddit thread where developers were sharing their real feelings about artificial intelligence seems to have gotten shadowbanned. But first, let's check out Alan's conservative countdown to artificial general intelligence. And 74 still, thank God. Now let's talk about an AI-driven sarcasm detector. Now this is what AI was meant for. Being able to detect the lowest form of wit could help AI interact with people more naturally, says scientists. Researchers in the Netherlands have built an AI-driven sarcasm detector that can spot when the lowest form of wit and the highest form of intelligence is being deployed. Throw that into GPT-4o and dang, man, we can be as sarcastic as we want to these things. Matt Kohler says, quote, "We are able to recognize sarcasm in a reliable way, and we're eager to grow that." I would love to know how much sarcasm goes undetected in real life. Like, that study would interest me so much. Can somebody make me a histogram? Now, of course, Sarcasm 101 has been covered by SNL, so, the machine's just going through the same learning process.
Excuse me, is this Sarcasm 101?
No, it's Lama's class from Men Named Arthur.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm kidding.
Now, one of the reasons why I think I really like this article is if you watch the movie Interstellar, there's a great scene where Matthew McConaughey asks TARS, my favorite AI robot, actually, to turn down its sarcasm settings, and it's like one of the best movie moments ever, in my opinion.
A giant sarcastic robot.
One of the overlooked features of GPT-4o is dripping with sarcasm, I guess?
Everything you say from now on is just going to be dripping in sarcasm. How does that sound?
Oh, that sounds just amazing. Being sarcastic all the time isn't exhausting or anything. I'm so excited for this. Nope, the sarcasm. Let's get this party started. Or whatever.
I think it was a little too on the nose when it's like, it's not sarcasm. Like, you don't say it's sarcasm if it's sarcasm. But I did feel the inflection, and I think they're off to a sarcastic start, for sure. Super interesting interview from one of the co-founders of OpenAI that I've never heard from before, and he got pressed pretty hard on this podcast. And it was clear to me that when Dwarkesh was like, hey, can you give me the specifics of what we're going to do when you achieve AGI internally, that there is nothing.
So first of all, I don't think this is going to happen next year, but it's still useful to have the conversation. Yeah. And maybe it's like 2 or 3 years instead.
Yeah, I guess 2 or 3 years is still pretty soon.
Yeah, it's still pretty soon.
Maybe more like 2 or 3 years. And the host is like, that's so close. That's 2 or 3 years. Like, you think we're going to, figure this out in the last month?
We'd have to be very careful if it happened way sooner than expected, because I think our understanding is rudimentary in a lot of ways still.
Which is like a really super generic answer, and I wasn't really happy with it.
Maybe not training the even smarter version, not like being really careful when you do train it, that it's not, it's like properly sandboxed and everything. Maybe not deploying it at scale, or being careful about what scale you deploy it.
At one point, he was hoping that only the frontier models are made by the big companies, so there's not too many of them, and that they can coordinate how to get the safety right.
I do think you probably need some coordination. Like everyone needs to agree on some reasonable limits to deployment or to further training for this to work. Otherwise you have the race dynamics where everyone's trying to stay ahead, and
it's like super generic, but then you probably need some coordination. Like, I don't know, man. It just seems like really obvious that everybody's walking into this thing blind. But there's Dylan Curious, the doomer again. So when I heard that internally Mark Zuckerberg and Meta are actually developing these camera buds, it struck me as a genius. Like, I don't know why I haven't seen that form factor before, but as much as we talk about how important it is to have glasses on our head so that where we look, it actually can react and tell us things, the Star Trek pin, not right.
Where do I have a flight to?
There is no specific information
information available about the destination.
Really, the headphones, much more doable. And if they're looking forward, it's binocular vision. But if they're looking to the side, there's a lot you can do there too, including noise canceling or notifying you of somebody who's walking up on you or telling you to like look to the left. You've got blah, 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 saying hello. And the other thing about the camera is like we have this peripheral vision. We basically know how many people are in the room with us and like what the situation is. And the camera doesn't necessarily need to be on the glasses. I don't even need to see the video feed myself, like when I'm looking through an Apple Vision Pro or a Meta Quest or anything like that. Just all day, I can just edit with headphones on. I can like mute them. I can leave them in my ears when I talk to people. I think that would be a really awesome use case for a form factor for artificial intelligence.
Hey, can you enhance the sounds that are right in front of me? And can you turn that baby down? That's better. And I'm still having a little trouble hearing Pedro. Can you isolate Pedro for me?
Y después manejamos.
Now, internally, the R&D department is calling them camera buds, and supposedly Zuck has seen a bunch of different possible designs for the device, but none of them have been to his satisfaction yet. And obviously, there's a bunch of problems to fix, like the battery life, the heat, the hair falling in front is something they said is affecting the design. So I don't know if they'll solve that problem. It's true the glasses get in front of the head a little bit more, and the hair doesn't bother them. So maybe it won't work, but it's an interesting concept to think about.
That's perfect. And, my Spanish is a little rusty. Can I hear Pedro, but in English?
And at the end of the trip, we came back to the city to visit the historic center.
Hey, Shell, close all programs.
And especially with a tool like GPT-4 being so close to the movie Her, where it seemed like that was how they envisioned the future. But if you think about artificial intelligence and noise canceling and all of those tools coming together in a form factor like the earpiece, that could be translation. You could be at home and you're just like, let me just hear the TV and like knock out the sound around me. I think there's some really interesting use cases for AI and a camera both being in the earbud.
What you just heard was a beamforming app, the computational auditory scene analysis app, a machine learning denoising app, an AI transcription and translation and text-to-speech with style transfer app. So these are not just fancy looking earbuds. They're an entire computer.
So look, what happened last week was pretty interesting because GPT-4o and Gemini Astra are very similar. Like they're kind of the same breakthrough product. They're both super cutting edge. They're both super useful, and they change the way that we interact with AI. And OpenAI made their announcement just one day before Google. But look at this, just from an optics point of view, look at how small that presentation stage is. There's a few people in couches and comfy chairs. There's a ton of warm lighting. There's like this just friendly looking beautiful woman who doesn't intimidate you like the way some of these giant tech CEOs do, or the way Steve Jobs used to stand on that stage. Like, I'm really surprised how intimate this announcement was. I don't usually expect big announcements to look like that. They seem to be grandiose most of the time. Like, compare that to Google's, oh my gosh, the eyes. I've been looking at my eye too much recently. But compare that to Google's keynote. Look at how massive that is. By the way, Matt Wolf's over there. Like, you can't see him in this frame, but I know where he's sitting because I saw his video. But look at that big stage that's so crowded. That has such a different feel to it. And it's so, it is kind of warm and colorful and rainbowy, but it's also very corporate-y, just the way he's standing and how big they made the audience. But more than that, there was like mystery surrounding this that OpenAI made that Google could have, but they just didn't. Like last week when that mysterious GPT-2 chatbot, I think it was called, but just a weird name shows up, gets tested, and nobody knows who made it, and it's more powerful than GPT-4, and then it disappears, and Sam Altman does this like cryptic thing, like GPT-2 is like a powerful model or something. We're like, wait, did you guys launch that? And then they did, and that's how they got the benchmarks, and that's why they did it. But there's just something so much deeper about that narrative and that story and that mystery that they're running. And even though there was a lot more to the GPT-4 model, it's like they did a really short presentation and they just focused in on the one thing that they wanted it to be known for. And then the other stuff kind of leaked out on the YouTube channel a little bit later, whereas Google was like, here's like 15 announcements, and there's the Gmail thing, and here's the Google Docs thing, and here's the Drive thing, and here's the upgraded 1.5 for everyone thing. And it was awesome, but also it was like it took work. Like you took notes and you're like, how am I going to integrate this? At the end of the day, we're just story-driven homunculi.
Hysterical bird brain homunculi.
MIT News has some interesting things for us to chew on. Scientists use generative AI to answer complex questions in physics. A new technique can automatically classify phases of physical systems that could help scientists investigate novel materials. Something I think about way more than I should, is kind of like my Rome, is phase transitions. But it's just that moment, you see it in all sorts of complex systems, where the sum becomes bigger than the parts. And in this article, article, they cover what is the canonical example. So if you zoom in to water, you get individual H2O atoms, right? And together they do describe ice, water, and steam, but there's a tipping point, and it's just like a snap of a finger. It's a moment where they're jiggling around and they're loose and it's water, and then you make it colder and colder and colder, and they start to slow down, but it's not ice yet. It's still water. They're just moving a little bit slower. And then it just like, they lock into place. And now it's kind of a different material. It's still made of the same atoms, but it's very different in how you describe its characteristics. So the MIT researchers started thinking about all of the data that they have about phase transitions. They trained a model, and they demonstrated how generative models can be used to solve this classification task much more efficiently than physics-informed tools. All right, so back to OpenAI for a minute. They've introduced a new tool that will guarantee that if my YouTube channel doesn't work, that I have absolutely no job security to make money in any other way, and that is the new improvements in data analysis from ChatGPT. So most of my life before I started working on YouTube was pretty much Jupyter Notebooks, Matplotlib, and NumPy. I kind of got familiar with those tools and used them over and over and over and over and over again to solve a bunch of different problems. Pretty sure anybody who would have hired me to do that doesn't need me anymore, which makes me sad, but also the future comes for all of us. And now there's a bunch of new tools for customizing and downloading charts for presentations and documents. So here's how it's going to work. You're going to be able to upload one or more data files to ChatGPT, and it will analyze your data by writing and running Python code on your behalf. I played with Code Interpreter like a year ago, and I was already just so impressed. But now it can handle a range of data tasks like merging and cleaning large data sets. Oh, that was a big part of what I did. Creating charts and uncovering insights. But what's really cool is this idea that we can now work on tables in real time. I mean, like, look at this. Imagine having the ability to just chat on the sidebar with your spreadsheet. This is crazy. Like, this is so powerful. I mean, now think of at a company, all of the people who have access to data, but just didn't really have the tools to think about it or understand it. But now they can just say something as simple as, give me some insights. Like, should I buy more inventory? Like, can you build me a chart of how much it's selling and make a prediction if it's time to order more? All these kind of things. Like, if this plugs into something like Neo4j where you can build graphs too and like traverse edges and nodes, like, holy cow, that would be amazing. You could do knockout tests, graph analysis, just so much. All right, let's talk about artificial intelligence making airplane travel safer. Of course, you probably already know about the panel that blew off of the 737 MAX mid-flight, but one thing you might not know is that aerospace manufacturers still face a lack of extensive 3D CAD models for legacy aircrafts. Like, you think all this stuff is just built to super precise modes in CAD and then simulated in all these different ways, and like all the pieces come together, which I'm sure is true for the most part, but artificial intelligence can take that to the next level, and it can be used for AI-powered predictive maintenance. And that's something I hadn't thought a lot about either. Like, you could, say, vibrate a digital version of an airplane, a digital twin, and just see if anything like rattles around or shakes off it. And then if it does, you can use that as training data, like keep learning about moments like this. And it can start focusing in on what are different ways we could like jostle the airplane or bend materials or change temperatures to actually break it. And then we would start having predictive ideas of what's going to break. To me, that's so powerful. And of course, you can add this AR VR element. So sure, somebody can put on Apple Vision Pro and like walk around the airplane and like see where the bolts are going to fall out. But as long as you could see it in the simulation, I think that's what really matters. Like, that's the important thing, is adding AI to these digital twin simulations. So 4 days ago on Hacker News, a developer writes this: maybe it's just me, but the advances in artificial intelligence are just leaving me feeling disillusioned as a builder. There's an odd feeling that whatever I'm going to build will just get gobbled up away by some big tech company, and the demos are becoming more cringy. Does anyone else feel like they're wasting their time? And it dropped off the front page, potentially naturally. I don't want to say it was like Shadowbanned for sure, but it did seem like it was really something everybody wanted to chime in on, and then it just kind of got cut pretty quick. That's up for debate, but what's not up for debate is just how many people felt the same way. I'm not disillusioned, I'm just being realistic. As opposed to the dot-com boom, AI is top-down rather than bottom-up. Like, it seems like AI is going to give a lot of regular people the potential to build stuff that they couldn't have before. So that feels bottom-up to me. But I would argue, yes, it's going to come at the cost of developers. I think their jobs need to turn into what are they going to build and how are they going to sell it and how are they going to market it, and everything's a brand nowadays. But asking Claude what is the overall sentiment from this Hacker News comment section, we find overall the sentiment leans more towards disillusionment, concern, and uncertainty rather than an optimism and excitement. Right now, let's talk about some of the latest AI research. And let's start by talking about MasterWeaver, Taming Editability and Identity for Personal Text-to-Image Generation. So here's the reference face. So you might upload a picture of this woman and you say a smiling woman with curly red hair. She doesn't have red hair here, But once it goes through this new model, here's what you end up with, which is really impressive. I see the same shape of the nose, the same sort of shape of the cheek and the mouth, but I do see like curly red hair everywhere. Right, and I know she could be looking red because I literally have blood in my eye, but I'm telling you, I think it looks like red hair. But it's interesting to see the progress because I remember Dream Booth being such a big deal, and it just looks like it's nothing anymore compared to some of these other models, Fast Composer, IP Adapter, and Photo Maker, which I'll do totally kind of wet. Well, I guess Photomaker kind of hits it, but this new model is definitely the best. Throwing AI researcher Jan LeCun into an Iron Man suit or with a Christmas hat on retains his face, his glasses, all looks legit to me. And same with a reference image of Geoffrey Hinton smiling, which is rare, and red hair, which is probably even more rare. So you change this woman to be in the snow or on the beach, I still see the same facial features, and this woman while swimming or running also seems about right. Okay, so looking at a couple other examples. So all of these are different versions like Dream Booth and Custom Diffusion and Photomaker. And this one on the far right is the actual one that we're looking at today. This one is MasterWeaver. So if you take Elon Musk, you see a lot of these look pretty bad. Like this one looks really bad, but I would say that theirs is not great, honestly. I feel like that's kind of mid. When it comes to turning Taylor Swift into an anime cartoon, this one definitely missed it, but it did seem like Celeb Basis did okay. And I would say that this one did well too. See, adding purple hair to Scarlett Johansson had some mixed results. Dream Booth did good. No. Yeah, and I would say that theirs is the best. Like MasterWeaver really does seem to look like Scarlett Johansson with purple hair. Next up, let's talk about Cat 3D. Create anything in 3D with multi-view diffusion models. So cool, look at this paper coming out of Google DeepMind and Google Research. You know it's gonna be good. All right, we got a snail, a bear, a cat with a funnel, and like remove the background and gave us like some wobble. Very cool. The snail's bending a little weird. Oh, look at that cute bee. Full rotation all the way around 360. Oh, that's impressive. I thought it was going to get stuck at the just like the wobble look, because with Nerf it's hard to go all the way around something. Yeah, like more like this. Although the robot seems like he's keeping his depth pretty good down here. Create 3D scenes from any number of real or generated images. Interesting. All right, so let's check this out. We got this beat up car out in the woods. Wow, that does really kind of immerse you. Interesting. Just one frame like that, I was like, okay, that looks like a diffusion model, but look, it's cool. You can pretty much, you can go all the way around. I mean, the tire kind of breaks off down there and everything, but there's a lot of dimension to this. To look at fully rendered like that snow all around it. Wow. Google, they're so good sometimes, you know? Like, how could you just keep losing to OpenAI? So much data, so much research. DeepMind has been so good for so long. I'm a fan of the yarn. I like that yarn bee. Like, I love yarn bees for some reason. I like paper cut craft bees too, but I like yarn bees second. There you go, Cat 3D. It's just that good. All right, this one you're gonna either love it or hate it. This is the Platonic representation hypothesis. And the reason can be summarized with this chart. The more we align the models across the board, the more similar they become. Now, if they're becoming more similar because they're becoming more safe, that's great. If it's taking away diversity or a voice, or it's becoming too PC, or it's becoming the narrative of one type of Western thinking, then it's a problem. So that's where the drama comes in. But it seems like from this paper that it's not just about us using reinforcement learning to force them to be the same. It actually seems like the smarter they get, the more they understand our universe and our world, and that's part of what's aligning them. The deeper the network gets, the more advanced it gets, the more it starts to think alike, no matter what they're trained on or how they're built. So the authors argue that this convergence is being pushed towards a universal statistical model of reality, and that's probably great because it could have big implications for how we design AI systems in the future to make them all work well. So for better or worse, more uniformity looks like it's in our future. All right, next up, let's talk with TRANSIC, a sim-to-real policy transfer by learning from online correction. All right, so we got this light bulb changing robot here, and this is a sim-to-real policy transfer. Policy in AI is kind of the rule set. It's how the system can move, the choices that it can make to achieve goals. So they're basically saying, why don't you learn all these policies? The better the policy fits the environment, the better it actually get the outcome. And the big challenge is what works in simulations often doesn't make it into the real robot. There's just something different about real life and the way the simulation mismatched what was going to happen. So this system called TRANSIC addresses that issue by involving humans in the loop. Essentially, humans oversee the robot's actions and step in to correct mistakes in real time. So that's cool. Like you can just grab the hand and be like, oh, you pinched it too hard, or move it over here. And that's what's called the residual policy. That's a fine-tuning system that changes the original policy. So now we've got some research that's coming out of Anthropic. It's called Simple Probes Can Catch Sleeper Agents. Sounds so cool. Sleeper agent training, deceptive LLMs that persist through safety training. So the idea here is that during the initial training of a model, somebody puts in the secret thing that it's really supposed to do and supposed to keep hidden from all of the people testing it. And then once it gets out into the wild, they can like activate it in a special way. So what Anthropic has done is they've created these models that, for example, write secure code when prompted with the year 2023, but introduce vulnerabilities when the year is 2024. Yeah, that's pretty sneaky. So they found that these backdoors remained intact despite various safety training methods, including supervised fine-tuning, reinforcement learning, and adversarial training. So yeah, they put this in there and then they put it through their normal testing to see if they could actually get rid of the sleeper agent completely, and they were still able to activate it. Well, what if some of these open source models, maybe coming out of Meta or Baidu, or even Google's got an open source one now, what if somebody there is like, hey, let's put in the sleeper agent? So they also said that interestingly, the largest model and those using chain of thought reasoning were most resistant to these safety measures. And unfortunately, there is no happy ending to this. That's the whole paper, just like we couldn't kill the sleeper agent. So I guess we should all think about that one and work on it next. All right, quick update on the last video. It's popping off, 6.9 thousand views. When I was recording last night, it was only an hour old and it looked like it was gonna do good, but I wasn't sure if it was gonna keep up, but it did. So let me know if you think it was the title thumbnail combo. I did start using AI News : which is what Matt Wolf does. So maybe that helped people understand what they're getting into. Also, I used ChatGPT in the title, which seems to help. Maybe new in caps. Or maybe the arrow with the logo pointing to the dog insane or something. I don't know, but there was a nice combination there. You can see I got a freaking 150 new subscribers. Thank you if you're one of those new people. I love that the channel is growing. I made $5. I got 5 on it. Retention was pretty typical. 66% of you made it to the 30-second mark, which is pretty good for me. YouTube was nice enough to give me 50,000 impressions, and that correlated with a 8.2% click-through rate. So 6.9 thousand views. That's crazy. And a lot of them were unique. I mean, it was all coming in from the browse feature, but that's pretty common for a growing channel. So I'm really happy with that. There's one video suggesting my content more than everyone else. Let me show that to you, because that is this video for some reason, the AI grid. So a lot of people at the end of this video were getting recommended my video right after. So not sure how I connected on that. I like the AI grid. I didn't talk about them recently, so who knows? The algorithm does crazy things. And a nice healthy dose of subscribed and unsubscribed. So that out of the 7,000 views, at least half of them were new people. So that's great. Unfortunately, it did not show my video to any females again. So it was a 100% male audience. So all 7,000 views were men. Feels like AI is very disruptive, but I like that 45 to 54-year-olds are actually caring about this. And 35, 44 makes sense. And then 25, 34. Yeah, I mean, that's a nice kind of curve there. Yeah, being in the United States, speaking English, I'm not surprised. Australia, UK, Canada, a little bit of Germany down there. And if you were wondering about that counter in the bottom corner, I got an email from somebody who had this idea that maybe there should be a magic word counter in the lower corner of the screen. And I'll use a relevant word for the video. In this case, it was OpenAI, and we counted it. So yeah, let me know if that counter down there kept you engaged. So if that's one of the reasons you made it this far in the video, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.